Welcome into our Sabres Classics pregame show. Brian Duff with Marty Baron. Marty, obviously the world and especially New York City at this particular moment is dealing with a global pandemic, and we are obviously keeping those at the front of this battle, the front lines, if you will, in our hearts, much like we always will keep those families in our hearts who lost loved ones due to the results of the terrorist attacks in September of 2001. This all leads us into what we are presenting tonight. And as you can tell, it is a very emotional topic.
Yeah, very emotional. Just being there on that October of 2001, merely a month after the attack on the Twin Towers, the Pentagon. It was a very difficult time to even think about hockey. On September 11th, 2001, we were in our first day of training camp. So to have played a couple of games, and then game 3 of the regular season for us, the Buffalo Sabres, was the opening home opener of the New York Rangers, the first meaningful game at MSG on Manhattan, because the Mets had played at Citi Field, the Yankees obviously at Yankee Stadium, but, well, it wasn't Citi Field at the time, but still at Shea Stadium. But, the first game in Manhattan and the emotion in the air, being there with the fire department of New York, the NYPD, their hockey team, their families, it was very emotional.
And we were so fortunate to be included on a trip to New York City last summer, accompanied by a group of Western New York heroes, which is not only the name of the organization, but an apt description of those who were on the trip with us. And, you and fellow Sabres alum, Rob Ray and JP Dumont, and, members of our Sabres staff and community relations department, we were so fortunate to be able to accompany these people who served immediately after the attacks in so many ways. And when we arrived in Manhattan, we were able to meet up at the FDNY 10 House, which of course, featured prominently this incredible group of outgoing firefighters representing Engine Company 10 and Ladder Company 10. And it's now captured in our Beyond Blue and Gold, which came out today. It was an incredible opportunity, and I think we, in our careers, have been blessed with many. This one was quite unique and absolutely incredible.
And I think that's why we're wearing those shirts today. These are the shirts to represent the jerseys that we wore in that game at Madison Square Garden. Instead of the Sabres logo, the Rangers and the Sabres wore a jersey that said New York across the front, which was very representative of we're all New Yorkers. That was a phrase that Al Trotwig used in the pregame ceremony. So it was very unique. But as you go back to this summer, some of the Western New York Heroes members that we were able to meet up with and spend a lot of time with, go to dinner, lunch, do so many great things, go to a baseball game. Some of them packed up their bag right away when the towers were hit. They packed up their bag and they drove down to New York City to lend a hand, to help out. Some of them went overseas to Afghanistan and had a couple of tours in the war on terror. It was very emotional to be able to talk to them about it. And obviously going through the 9/11 memorial, the museum, there's some that I've lost close friends, family members, as we were walking through the museum, that it just brings back all that emotion, and very, very fortunate to have had that experience with so many great people.
It was an incredible opportunity to listen and observe, wasn't it?
Oh, listen is exactly what you said. I'm a guy that talks a lot, but when I walked through the museum and I was with members of the fire department of New York and that hockey team, I just listened to what they had to say. We walked through Madison Square Garden on a tour and listened to Mike Richter talk about what it was like in New York City at that time, getting ready for a hockey season. And Mike Richter is a very well-spoken man, a smart man, and he really touched all of us. So listening was definitely something that I did a lot over those 3 days, and it was special.
It really was. And a special thanks to everyone at Madison Square Garden, the network, the Rangers, and specifically Mike Richter. He was a brilliant ambassador for us on that trip. The 9/11 Memorial and Museum, as you mentioned, the Mets, um, of course, our friends at New Era, with these great caps that everybody was so appreciative of and thankful for. The outings that we had at the Grata Azura and
Yeah.
O'Hara's, from dinner and lunch in consecutive days, these places opened themselves up for a very, very large group of people that were trying to step into this literal place in the world for the first time in nearly 2 decades for many of them, and it was very, very challenging for a lot of those Western New York heroes, and we are so grateful.
Oh, very grateful. You talk about, and we've had a chance this year with the Decade Nights, with this 50th anniversary season, to be able to see what it is when you gather 20, 30 alumni that haven't seen each other for 15, 20 years. And you have a couple of drinks and you tell stories, and it's all so much fun. Well, when we got to meet up with the firemen and women of New York and in that Horaires, and we started having a couple of drinks, and stories were told, and hockey stories, stories about what it was like at that moment. It was like a giant reunion. Some of these guys hadn't seen each other, as you pointed out, for 20 years, 15 years, and it was definitely a moment where you felt special to be part and be able to share that with them. So yeah, I can't. I look back at some of the pictures, and obviously you posted some on Twitter, and I look back at the pictures, and everybody that was included in that trip was special for many different reasons. We were just passenger, and we enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and everyone has a story, and I think that's the most important thing. And ultimately, when we get back to hockey, we will be able to do a hometown heroes night the way we anticipated doing it, and being
Yep.
able to celebrate the individuals of Western New York heroes and all those who have served our community and far beyond our community over time. So all that being said, no reason for one-timers or stats or stories. Tonight is an emotional night that we hope you can really take the opportunity with family to reflect on what that time was like in 2001. And prior to the game airing, our Sabres Classic on MSG at 8, we certainly invite you to check out the latest Beyond Blue and Gold, which captures the story of our summer trip to New York.